Today we're taking a look at Trumpeter's 135 scale KV-1 with the simplified turret. Before we get started on the build, let's take a quick look inside the box and see what Trumpeter has included. We've got the hull, turret, suspension components, tracks, and plenty of smaller parts spread across the sprues. So now that we've taken a look at what we're working with, let's get right into the build. Now that we've seen what comes in the box, let's take a step back and look at the real vehicle we're building. The KV-1 was developed in the Soviet Union during the late 1930s, as the Red Army was looking for a heavily armored tank capable of breaking through enemy defensive positions. Named after a Soviet defense commissioner, the KV-1 entered service in 1939. Just before the outbreak of the Second World War. The tank was designed around one major idea: protection. Its armor was significantly heavier than most tanks of the period, while its 76mm main gun gave it enough firepower to deal with enemy tanks and fortified positions. The KV-1 was operated by a crew of 5: the commander, gunner, loader, driver, and hull machine gunner. The commander and turret crew were responsible for operating the main armament, while the driver and machine gunner worked from the hull. When the Germans invaded the Soviet Union in June of 1941, the KV-1 immediately demonstrated just how difficult it could be to destroy. German anti-tank guns often struggled to penetrate its armor. Some KV-1s were able to withstand enormous amounts of enemy fire while continuing to fight. The KV-1 had its problems. Its heavy weight put tremendous strain on the transmission and suspension, while its visibility and communications were also limited. The KV-1 could be extremely tough, but keeping it moving was another story. The Soviets quickly discovered that this much armor came with serious disadvantages. The tank was slow, difficult to maneuver, and mechanically demanding. Its weight also made recovery and repairs much more difficult when a vehicle broke down. Despite these problems, the KV-1 remained valuable because of its ability to survive hits that would destroy lighter tanks. As the war progressed, the Soviet Union had to rethink how the KV-1 was being built. The original design was expensive and time-consuming to manufacture, and Soviet factories were under enormous pressure to produce tanks in massive numbers. The answer was simplification. Components were redesigned to reduce machining and speed up production, while some of the more complicated features were eliminated. The KV-1 was gradually becoming easier to build while still retaining the heavy armor that made it so difficult to knock out. These changes would eventually lead to several different KV-1 variants, including the simplified turret featured on this model. By 1942, the KV-1 was being produced with increasingly simplified components, allowing Soviet factories to build more tanks with fewer resources. But even with these improvements, the KV-1's weight remained a major disadvantage. The arrival of newer German tanks also meant that its original advantages were beginning to disappear. The KV-1 would eventually be replaced by the improved KV-1S and later Soviet heavy tanks. These older Trumpeter kits can have small pinholes where the body sections meet, so I'm using Vallejo plastic putty to fill them. I'm applying it with a Q-tip, which lets me work the putty right into the holes and clean off the excess at the same time. It settles neatly into the imperfections, leaving the surface ready for primer. As you can see, I've left the fenders off the hull at this stage. I'm doing this so I can get better access to the tracks and paint them properly without having the fenders getting in the way. For the base coat, I'm using Vallejo Rotbraun, German red-brown. I'm applying this over the lower hull and the track assemblies to give everything a dark reddish-brown foundation. From here, I'll build up the track colors with darker steel tones, weathering, and some selective rust to give them a realistic used appearance. If you want to get chipping results like the finish you can see here, the key is starting with the right foundation. Before applying our Russian green, I'm laying down a coat of chipping medium over the areas I want the paint to wear away later. Once the chipping medium is down, I can move on to the main color. For this KV-1, I'm using Vallejo Russian Green 4BO, giving the tank that classic Soviet green finish. I'm covering the model evenly with the 4BO, making sure the chipping medium underneath is completely covered. With the green coat finished, the next step is to focus on the tracks and get those painted before we move on to the next step. Now it's time to tackle the tracks. I'm starting with a light mist of dark sea gray, carefully building up the color without completely covering the Vallejo Rotbraun, or German red brown, underneath. Once that dries, I'm adding two different rust washes. First is saddle brown, followed by a pre-mixed Vallejo rust wash. Using both gives the tracks some variation instead of leaving them looking like a single flat color. To finish them off, I'm using an AK Interactive gunmetal paint marker to pick out the raised track teeth, cleats, in the areas contacting the road wheels. These high wear surfaces get a darker metallic finish, helping give the tracks that used worn steel appearance. Before installing the fenders, I'm first painting them to match the rest of the KV-1. I'm using the same base in the same 4BO Russian green finish, so they blend naturally with the rest of the hull. When it comes to installing them, I'm taking a slightly different approach than I normally would. Because the tracks and road wheels couldn't be glued together as one solid assembly like they can on some of my German tanks, I needed to work around the running gear. I learned a lot from building the Trumpeter KV-2. The two kits are essentially identical in how they go together, with the only real difference being the turret. That experience helped me figure out the best way to assemble this KV-1. For this camouflage pattern, I'm starting with rolled sections of poster tack, bending them into the irregular shapes from my reference and placing them directly over the 4BO green. The pattern I'm recreating is based on a Soviet KV-1, associated with the 52nd Red Banner Tank Brigade, operating with the 9th Army in the Transcaucasian Front in 1942. Once the masking is in place, I'll spray the dark red-brown over the exposed areas. The poster tack gives us those soft, irregular edges that should make the camouflage look much more natural than a hard, perfectly straight line. As you may remember from earlier in the build, I used chipping fluid underneath the 4BO green. This time around, I made a few mistakes with how aggressively I worked the surface. When using acrylic primer with chipping medium, it can be a good idea to protect that primer with a layer of varnish first. This gives the surface more protection and helps prevent the chipping process from taking the primer completely off and exposing the bare plastic. So, to avoid going all the way down to the plastic, I'm switching over to sponge chipping. I'm not overly precise with it because there's going to be a whitewash applied over the tank later, which will help cover and blend some of this work. Once I'm happy with the chipping, I'll seal everything with a gloss clear coat. That gives us a smooth surface for the decals before we move on to the whitewash. Now that the clear coat is dry, it's time to get the decals on. I'm using micro set to help with the adhesion and make sure the decals settle properly onto the surface. Unfortunately, I ran into a problem with one of the main decals. This one shows a Soviet anti-tank gun firing toward what appears to be a German soldier, but there was a large piece of Scotch tape stuck directly to the decal. By the time I discovered it, it was too late, and part of the decal had to come off with the tape. I'll blend that damaged area into the whitewash later, which should help hide the mistake and make it much less noticeable. I then seal the decals with another coat of varnish, prepping the model for the whitewash in the next step. Now it's time to start the winter whitewash. Before applying the off-white, I'm putting down another layer of chipping medium. This will allow us to create some worn and uneven areas in the whitewash later on. For the white, I'm using an off-white color heavily thinned with water, about 65% water to 35% paint. I'm deliberately avoiding a perfectly even coat and instead applying it randomly, using more of a hand-applied pattern across the tank. The goal is to leave some of the 4BO green and the camouflage underneath visible through the whitewash. That variation will make the winter finish look much more natural and worn, rather than looking like the entire tank was simply painted solid white. Once the whitewash has completely dried, I can really start beating this KV-1 up. I'm going pretty heavy with the chipping, wearing away a lot of that whitewash and exposing the green underneath. After that, I spray another layer back over the areas I've chipped, and then start working it back down again. This creates multiple layers of paint and whitewash, giving the surface a much more three-dimensional look. Now, I wouldn't necessarily call this completely realistic, but if you've been following my channel, you know I'm not always trying to keep things completely realistic. I like taking the weathering further and making these tanks look seriously battle-worn. For me, it's about creating a tank that looks like it's been through hell, and this KV-1 is definitely heading in that direction. Now it's time to bring some dirt and grime into the weathering with pigments. I'm starting by applying odorless mineral spirits to the underside of the hull using an iodine dropper. This gives the pigments something to bind to and helps control where they settle. I'm using 3 different pigments, starting from the darkest shade to the lightest. I'm sprinkling them over the areas where dirt and dust would naturally accumulate, building up the color gradually rather than applying everything at once. I'm also deliberately keeping the pigments off the very bottom of the tank. That way, when I handle the model, I'm not constantly rubbing pigments onto everything around it. Now it's time to start bringing out some of the smaller details on the KV-1. I'm using Tamiya dark gray panel line accent color, applying it along the weld seams, around the rivets, and anywhere where it's a recessed line for the wash to flow into. Ideally, this would have been done before applying the pigments, but I simply forgot to do it earlier. It's not a big deal though, because we can still work the panel liner around the pigments and get the effect we're after. The idea isn't to cover the entire model. I'm letting the panel liner naturally collect in those recessed areas, creating deeper shadows and making the smaller details stand out. After letting the pigments dry for about 24 hours, I can start working them back off the tank and controlling where that dirt buildup remains. I'm leaving a heavier amount underneath the lower hull and running gear, almost like this tank has been working through thick mud all day. That's exactly the kind of area where dirt would build up and stay trapped. I'm also rubbing pigment onto the sides of the tank. During the spring thaw, mud would get thrown all over this winter camouflage, and without modern pressure washers available in the field, crews couldn't simply blast all that dirt away. So I'm leaving plenty of that grime behind to give this KV-1 a seriously used appearance. For some of the finishing details, I'm going into the AK book of cutouts for a couple of small pieces of battlefield stowage. I'm adding a German field ration, which could have easily been recovered from an abandoned or destroyed German vehicle. Items like this could easily find their way into Soviet hands during the fighting, making captured equipment and supplies an interesting detail to add to the tank. I'm also adding a Soviet flag across the rear of the KV-1. Large identification markings or flags could be used to help friendly aircraft recognize ground forces, especially when tanks were operating close to the front line. We're down to the final few details of the KV-1. With the machine guns in place, this build is officially finished. I'm really happy with how this one turned out. Between the layered winter whitewash, heavy weathering, pigments, and battlefield details, this KV-1 has the worn, hard-used appearance I was going for. These are a few of my other builds as well. If you want to see more of them, check them out here on my channel. And with that, the KV-1 is complete. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next build.